Good afternoon. I'm Frank Shaw, Chair of the Board of Directors for the YMCA of Greater Seattle, and it is my honor to welcome you to our first biannual Mission Forum for 2022, where we learn and discuss topics important to our mission and community. Today, we'll reflect on the health crisis in our community, exacerbated by the pandemic, systemic racism, and climate change, and zoom in on its monumental and lasting impacts on our youth. Thank you for joining us. Let us begin by first acknowledging the ancestral keepers of the land we gather on today. We thank them for their immense contributions to our state and local history, culture, economy, and identity as Washingtonians. Thank you for joining us for this important conversation. Here at the Y, we believe that healthy living is much more than our physical health. It includes our mental health, emotional health, spiritual health, and so much more, which is what we call whole person health. Today, our youth need us to hear them, learn from them, and support their development today for success tomorrow. And among our youth, there is a burgeoning mental health crisis, especially among queer, transgender, Black, Indigenous people of color. Youth are reporting higher rates of depression, anxiety, and suicidal thoughts over the past 2 years at much higher rates than before the pandemic. An entire generation is struggling, and we must hear them. By supporting a person in spirit, mind, and body, we support them where they are and help them meet their goals and thrive. With our donors, volunteers, and community partners like you, the Y brings access to support services, removes barriers for youth, and become a vital partner in a young person's success. Not by telling them what to do and trying to fix everything with quick solutions, but by listening, supporting, and engaging with youth to help create the systems of support they need for their unique journey. To help us learn more, please join me in welcoming Y Board member Sherry Williams, VP of Community Engagement and External Relations with HealthPoint, and a committed and valuable member of the Y family. Sherry has been deeply committed to addressing these crises in our community and a tremendous advocate for healthy equity for our youth, especially those furthest from opportunity. Today, she'll share what the Y is doing to support youth in our communities and help them thrive. Sherry, welcome.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you, Frank. And welcome to the YMCA of Greater Seattle's Mission Forum. Thank you for taking time to join us this evening as we take a closer look at the current national crisis in the state of youth mental health. I'm Sherry Williams, proud YMCA board member for the past 4 years. We know that the pandemic has been a devastating impact on everyone in some form or fashion, and we truly hope that everyone is doing well as we begin to recover and heal from the past 2 years. For our young people, the loss of normalcy and routine, social isolation, ongoing uncertainty, and the new normal that has caused a drastic decline in youth mental health, as well as their well-being across almost every sector and outcome to date. The impact has been so devastating that in October 2021, the 3 largest national youth health associations, the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, the American Association of Pediatrics, and the National Children's Hospital Association has made an unprecedented announcement declaring a national state of emergency for youth mental health. One of the most troubling aspects of the pandemic is how we have crystallized and normalized and exacerbated the long-standing health disparities and inequities in our communities of color. We have seen a greater inequity amongst BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, people of color youth who identify as LGBTQ. It is so troubling and disheartening to hear that 67% of BIPOC and LGBTQ youth reported a state of persistent sadness and hopelessness during the pandemic. According to the Trevor Project's in 2021 survey of LGBTQ youth mental health, more than one half of the BIPOC, transgender, and non-binary youth considered suicide in 2020. This evening, the YMCA of Greater Seattle has convened key community stakeholders to take a closer and deeper look at the youth mental health crisis and the intersectionality between queer and transgender BIPOC youth. We will hear from professionals, community leaders, and experts, and we will hear from our youth. Our goal tonight is to have a learning forum where we would educate, activate, and for you to become an advocate. Please stand with us and others in our community that are fighting to end inequities, stigma that continues to plague many of our youth. I truly hope you are inspired by tonight's video, Centering the Margins, a conversation on the youth mental health crisis through the equity lens. Thank you.
My name is Jay. My name is Jay, Joe. I use they, them, or ta pronouns. I am the Youth Advocacy Program Manager here at Gay City.
My name is Nicole Jordan, and I am PLU's Pacific Lutheran University's Center for Gender Equity Coordinator. And so I have the privilege of working with students of color, LGBTQIA students, students of all kinds of marginalized identities, and the intersections of those.
My name is August, I use any pronouns. I'm an MSW intern at Gay City.
So I just want to say that, like, when we talk about this, I just want to say that there isn't like a lacking or thing that is like inherently like wrong with people who are queer or trans or queer and trans and like BIPOC. The problem is about like the way that like society has like failed people.
I have the privilege of being an advocate, which means that I'm a confidential resource. So students disclose a range of things and issues from sexual assault, stalking, and intimate partner violence to financial aid issues, and I support them in navigating that. I'll be trained to be an advisor soon, so I'll be supporting young students of color, advising first years, and so I'll be able to support students in answering questions around mental health. We talk about wellness, we talk about how to take care of ourselves, we talk about going beyond self-care and leading into collective care, and supporting each other as a community.
Gay City is really trying to think more critically about people's circumstances, and then also understanding that there's always nuances and complexities, that there are also issues of housing, of nutrition, of employment, of education that are also coming into someone's experience, that also that those have historical context in the sort of situations that people of color are placed in, or the sort of resources that people of color, particularly Black and Indigenous people, are denied, and that those, have impacts. Some of them may be more difficult and are often stigmatized.
Just by like changing someone's like environmental setting so that there are people who like hear them and accept them and understand who they are and use the correct pronouns for them and just like want them to stay like healthy and alive and strong and connect them to other peers is like a big thing on its own. And like cutie BIPOC people are people who are like creative and talented and smart and have like so much wonderful stuff to bring into the world. And so I don't think that I like go into this feeling like, oh, I am here to save people. I'm just like, I love like cutie BIPOC people and I want to like make them feel like they belong.
In the time where we're seeing homophobia and transphobia continue to be codified into law in extremely concerning ways, between Don't Say Gay, between social workers and other mental health professionals in Texas being implicated in investigating youth who are trans and their families. I think this is a really important time to remember that this isn't also just about preference or any other things that reduce the life-saving ability of affirming queer people and also allowing queer people to connect and have community and relationships with other people who are queer and protected in their identity. Whatever the kind of stigma is, it's really trying to understand where people are at and what people need in order to be well and have the support that they deserve.
Hi, everybody. My name is B Light. I will be your moderator for tonight. I'm super excited to have this conversation and this discussion. I am a spoken word poet and the founder of an organization called Power to the Poetry. And to start us off, I'm gonna just start with a little poem. Beautiful butterfly, come out your cocoon, spread your wings and fly to the moon. The possibilities are endless, this universe is infinite. Emerge from the shadows and be magnificent. Negative energy ain't a friend to me. Love, light, peace, and positivity. I have no enemies, but my life ain't always good. I don't pretend it to be. My body is a vessel. I'm conscious of what I let into me. Mentally, I'm not where I want to be, but one step is progress, so no stress. Get back in the gym, more reps. Work hard, then rest. Work hard, then rest. Give respect to myself. Prioritize my mental health. Silence my ego and ask for help. I don't accept the cards I was dealt. To succeed, I will fail. I will grow. I will tell the youth all you must do is believe in yourself. And so I just want to give y'all a friendly reminder to keep believing in yourselves and keep pushing and keep doing this important work. Welcome to Centering the Margins, a conversation on the youth mental health crisis. As the video has shown, we have some very important issues to tackle in relation to the youth mental health crisis. The focus on our time tonight will be exploring the youth mental health crisis through an intersectional and pro-equity lens. Equity and equality are not the same thing. Equity does not mean to give everyone the same thing. Everyone is not starting at the same point. Equity means that we must provide more resources to those who need them most to ensure they have the support and resources they need to thrive. When we say intersectionality in this conversation, we are not focusing on the definition of intersectionality that merely points to the idea of someone having multiple intersecting identities, but rather this conversation is focused on how power and systems of power and inequity shape the experiences of all youth in the human and social services system as their racial identities, socioeconomic statuses, ability statuses, gender identities, sexuality, and other identifiers such as immigration status, for example, intersect. And so before we get started, let's do some intros and introduce our super amazing panel this evening. So with us tonight, we have Donnie Goodman, who is the Senior Director of Behavioral Health Services of the Y Social Impact Center, and his pronouns are he, him. Then we have Ryan Roberson. They are the owner and therapist at Intersectional Therapy Seattle, and their pronouns are they, them. And then we have Mane Tui Aone, who is the youth program manager of United Territories of Pacific Islander Alliance, Utopia, Washington. Also the owner of Tui Ane Creations and the dance director at La Nuola Performing Arts Academy. And Mane uses all the pronouns. And then we got Mark Fedum, who is the Chief Programs Officer at Child Haven, and he uses he, him as his pronouns. So let's get to know our panelists a little bit better. Panelists, if you could introduce yourselves, the role that you serve, and share, the amazing work that you're doing in the behavioral health service field. So Donnie, let's start with you. Donnie, you are
it would help if I unmuted. You'd think after 2 years, we'd have this down pat, wouldn't you? Anyway, I just said amazing things and I don't remember. Anyway, I'm Donnie Goodman, Senior Director of the Behavioral Health Services here at the YMCA Social Impact Center. Our program provides both behavioral health, which is mental health and addiction services on an outpatient basis to our entire community, as well as we have the entire CORES programs, which make up 5 different programs serving 24 and younger individuals in King County who go into crisis and or their families. And then prior to that, for 25 years, I was clinical and deputy director at Seattle Counseling Service, the oldest LGBT mental health agency in the world. Thank you, Delight.
Wow, you do some pretty dope stuff, Donnie. We're gonna have to connect for real.
I would love that. Absolutely. I'm enjoying you immensely.
You're out here in the world making moves, and I love that. Thank you. Next, let's have Ryan.
Hello, thank you for having me. Ryan Roberson, LMHC. I use they, them pronouns. I am the owner and therapist at Intersectional Therapies. I primarily serve LGBTQ and POC emerging adults. And it has been such a privilege to be in service of these young people as they have survived these last few years and being able to bear witness to their experiences directly and hearing from them what this has been like and hearing what they need. So it's a pleasure to be here tonight.
Thank you. Infinite gratitude for you being here tonight, Ryan. So excited to work with you on a panel again.
Yes.
This panel is really about to be off the chain. I promise y'all that. Like, it's just a guarantee. Next, we got Mane.
Hello, everyone. Talo Falava. My name is Mane Tomoyafata, hailing from the beautiful Isles of American Samoa. I am born and raised on Duwamish territory, and then also residing on Puyallup territory. And so I'm very grateful to be here. I am the youth program manager at Utopia, Washington. And we run a program called Toloa Levai. It looks to create safe spaces, safe and sacred healing spaces for all Two-Spirit LGBTQIA plus youth and young adults and our allies by reclaiming our Indigenous queer identities and cultural practices to empower each of our students in their journey to celebrating who they are in their fullness. So I'm very excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me. And I am ready for this discussion. It's going to be a good one.
Ashe, ashe, ashe. Yes, we definitely need safe places, safe spaces, need to feel safe in ourselves. So all that resonates with me. Thank you so much, Monet. And last but not least, we got Mark.
Thank you, B-Light. Thank you, everyone, for spending your evening with us. It's going to be a good one. Mark Fedum, I'm the Chief Program Officer at Child Haven. Prior to that, I spent lots of years working in residential treatment, providing mental health care in detention centers, which is a very unique role. We can talk about that later. And then 23 years at the Odessa Brown Children's Clinic, working with Dr. Danielson, and I think our team was doing some really good work in regards to upstream work. How do we figure out how to make sure we get the folks that were never asked to the table? There's so many individuals and communities that have been invisible and not validated, not valued through the years. that we really need to be listening to, et cetera. The role over to Child Haven was a pretty seamless, because Child Haven historically has worked with families with little kids, young kids. And as I grew in my career, I realized, you know what, why are we allowing these atrocities to occur to families, especially BIPOC families, over and over and over and over again, mislabeling, pathologizing, et cetera. Let's go upstream. Let's do early intervention, preventative work. And Child Haven is dedicated to that. So I'm excited to learn. I'm excited to laugh, might even cry a little bit, and let's go.
Let's go. I love that. I used to play basketball and I was like, let's go. That's how I feel about this panel right now. I'm just hyped. So thank you, Mark. Appreciate you. So now let's shift to some specific questions that will enable us to understand both the urgency and opportunities inherent in seeing the issues through an intersectional and equity lens. So let's go. Let's get it started. Get it popping up in here. So the first question I have for y'all is if you could please share, the challenges that QT BIPOC youth deal with regarding behavioral health services, both mental health and substance use. That is my first question. Do we have anybody who's like, let me go first? Well, let's go, Ryan. I love it.
I was trying to not to go first. But yes, this is something I'm so passionate about. So our youth, man, they are a resilient bunch. But it's no mystery that mental health access is few and far between, especially for people that can afford it. It's very hard to find clinicians that represent the clients with the greatest need, especially our marginalized youth. So that's the big elephant in the room right there, is that there's literally just not enough therapists. 86% of therapists are white, very few are LGBTQ, even fewer are Native, and about 3% are Black. And if you want to splice the intersections of that, we really just do not have the type of therapist support system to support the needs for youth. On top of that, it's incredibly expensive. It's cost prohibitive. A lot of families are also not supportive of taking their children to therapy because of their own internalized beliefs about maybe those kind of education and life lessons should be learned at home. And so there's just this overwhelming need for support. And with schools having been closed for the majority of 2020, a lot of children were left to self-medicate on their own without their peer communities that they've grown to rely on to provide them some of that mental health support that's been so essential for them. So within that, I absolutely have seen a huge spike in self-medication in forms of substance abuse and self-harm, where suicide rates have really skyrocketed over the last few years. I also want to say, even though therapy is clearly my bias as a therapist, that is not the only avenue to healing and support. And we have a lot to do to connect our youth with all sorts of types of support. And some things that were mentioned before is basic education, food, community, dance, athletics, sports. All these things are part of that, the whole person help that is the focus of tonight's topic.
Lovely, lovely. Absolutely. I really resonated, you touching on representation. I think that's really, really important, because it builds trust. If, I'm gonna be honest, people who look like me, I have more sense of trust or even credibility, because I'm you understand me. And at the end of the day, we all just want to be understood, right? Everything's about communication, and the barriers is that miscommunication and the disconnect. So thank you so much, Ryan. Mane, I feel like you got something to say. My spirit's just saying you got something to say. So again, the question is, please share the challenges that QT BIPOC youth deal with regarding behavioral health services, both mental health and substance use.
Thank you, Be-Light. I just would like to just piggyback off of Ryan. I just knowing that there is no representation for barely any for Pacific Islanders, speaking on, our side, and to find somebody who is also queer and trans educated and can relate to that spectrum of my identity. It took me all the way up until my adult years to actually finally afford one, and to find someone who is Pacific Islander, and working as a therapist. And so even just for my personal work, just a disconnection with schools and community orgs that give a lot of our kiddos a chance to celebrate who they are in their own unique spaces in school, right? And so as community coming into school, we provide a lot of services to our families and our kids. And so um, when pandemic hit, there was a lot of disconnection with how communities were going to be accessible to our school and our youth, and those who really needed our services. And so we were really trying to get into every role, whether it's providing food for a lot of our families who are needing food, providing access to medication or mental service or medical services for our families. And a lot of that had to be door by door now. And so it was very difficult during the pandemic times, but I totally believe in honoring our cultural experiences and building those safe spaces. And it's really hard to build safe spaces virtually when you're still surrounded by your reality. And so yeah, but right now we're in a place where we're starting to open up slowly, and I'm very excited to now be into schools again and connecting with our kiddos like we used to. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Monet.
Thank you.
Thank you for the work that you do. Again, it's amazing. Just providing resources. Mark, would you like to speak to any of the challenges that have been arising and that you've seen?
I would love to. So I want to preface by I am speaking as a I said a young man, as a man of color. I wish I was a young man of color. And my words are not being shared to offend anyone, but I might offend somebody. That's not the intent. Let's look at our society. Let's look at how it was developed. I think we've developed into a toxic capitalistic system, and especially communities of color have been they were marginalized to pay a dividend to allow folks to get rich, and not ourselves by any means. And so therefore, it's no surprise that we have a mental health crisis now. We've had a mental health crisis forever in regards to the BIPOC communities. Doesn't mean that BIPOC communities aren't strong and resilient and amazing, but for many of our communities that have not been seen, as I said before, not been valued, it totally makes sense that we're in the predicament we're in now. And hopefully, maybe this pandemic will shine light on something that's been going on for years and years. I totally agree. Access is absolutely key. And you have to look at social determinants of health. Why don't we have secure housing for many of the families that we have served over the years? Why is food insecurity such an issue? We wonder why we can't hire folks that look like the communities we serve. We're losing most of our young men of color by third grade. The educational system has given up on them in many, many ways. Not to say that's not true for our young women of color. So, when you're looking for lots of letters behind someone's name to get a job, they don't exist. They don't exist for a reason. As I think I read in the program early, the system isn't broken. The system is sophisticated. We have to be even more sophisticated to break down those barriers of racism and classism and gender inequities. I'll go on just for a little longer. Time is weaponized. I mean, if you really want to go into a session and say, all right, one, you're going to be diagnosed. Who wants to be diagnosed? I'm not saying diagnosing is totally wrong. It's weaponized also. I don't know how many kids I met in detention centers across the country that were, oppositional defiant disorder. No, they weren't. They were traumatized. They were absolutely traumatized. That same white kid that went through the same stuff had an anxiety or depression diagnosis, but these other kids of color had oppositional defiant conduct disorder. Now you had to question that. Now, why is that happening? I think that we definitely don't give communities voice in regards to programming. How can we do that? How do we not ask communities what they want instead of us or agencies saying this is what we have and you fit into our box? That makes no sense. It makes no sense. And lastly, because I don't want to take up too much time, we have so many silos. Has a silo ever helped any of us in regards to you call, you give all your information, then you transfer it to another person, you call, you give all your information. Like, who wants to give information that is hard to put out in the universe? And we do that. We do that all the time in our healthcare field, and it's ridiculous. We need to break down hierarchies and silos. We need to listen to community voices. We need to rectify the history of racism and classism. So we have work to do. We have work to do, and I love the fact that everyone here is wanting to do that work in the audience and on the panel.
Ashe, ashe. Thank you, Mark. You are filled with passion, and I'm so thankful that there are people out here like you doing the work and advocating, for all of these people and these demographics, because we need it. We need it. So thank you. Donnie, I would love to wrap this up with you. And I want to just ask you, would you prefer DL? Because I know DL's on your screen.
It's fascinating. It's been there for a long time. I haven't figured out how to get off it. Donnie's perfect.
Okay. Donnie, you just
I seem to have an issue with my mute not wanting to click off. Sorry. It's just, anyway, Teams, it's tired. It's the end of the day, right? I can't get DL off my screen. See, I'm not technology savvy. I like to be around humans, not computers. But thank you for asking me. You can call me Donnie. So I want to go back to what you said about sitting across from somebody that looks like you, right? We cannot emphasize enough the lack of professional representation in our field. I find, so for those of you don't know, I moved here directly from the Rosebud Reservation in South Dakota in 1994 and been working in King County since 95. And I'm still mind boggled for the last, 20 some years now. I'm the only Native American specialist in the mental health system in King County. So I appreciate, what you had mentioned. I see you shaking your head there. Yeah, about Native Americans, right? And that's not unique. And so there's truly a failure of the systems, which I know we're going to talk about later. The other thing is, even if you're sitting across from somebody that doesn't look like you, we can work with that. But unfortunately, so many people lack knowledge related to multicultural identities and experiences. Do I go to Native? Well, which Native therapists, right? Or do I go to gay therapists, and who understands one? And do you remember there was that big push that we're going to be culturally competent, right? Everyone's like, the dumbest thing ever, right? How can you be competent when we each have our own culture and our identity? So that's always been perplexing to me. And then the last is, and this is, I think, something that we need to do a better job to figure out, queer, trans, BIPOC individuals. And it doesn't matter. So many people don't just think they deserve behavioral health services, right? They feel it's for somebody else and that they haven't earned that or the ability to access it, or they don't know how. So to me, those are some of the major things, in addition to, what the panel's already shared.
Thank you so much, Donnie. Absolutely. This panel is straight fire. I need to hang out with all y'all.
Hey, can I cut in just for a quick second? I guess I just did, sorry. The other thing is, so often in our higher ed institutions that are predominantly white and have their own issues to wrestle with, that many of the evidence-based models coming out, and I'm sure everyone's going to shake their head, yes, many of them are really good for those that they did control groups on, which were white, mostly white, middle class, upper middle class folks, right? And so that is a massive issue in regards to cultural sensitivity, cultural humility, whatever you want to call it, cultural incongruency, right? And so therefore we have to figure out ways to make sure we get folks in those institutions and folks that are providing the development of quality care that meet the needs, the overall needs of marginalized communities and communities of color, because it doesn't work. And the thing is, once you implement them, then the tendency is, well, they didn't show up for the last 2 sessions, so they don't really want the care. No, it's that the care wasn't fit for them. It's not about the communities or the families not wanting or needing. It's that we have to do a better job as professionals.
Thank you, Mark. So the next question I have for the panel is, what is working in your agency to address the QT BIPOC youth mental health crisis and the power inequities and racism that exist within the mental health system? We have anybody that wants to start us off? Johnny?
Sure. Well, I still have my ability to not have my mute locked. You know, I can't say enough how fortunate I am to be at the Y here in Seattle at the Social Impact Center. We're such a large assortment of social service programs. So I'm only going to talk about the behavioral health one because it's not fair. I wouldn't do justice to the others, but we have such amazing services. And honestly, one of those things of coming from another agency after 25 years in King County, I really realized we got to figure out a way to really promote the services, because the ignorance that those of us had outside the agency that didn't work here, or when I didn't work here before, I was clueless that all the amazing services. And having been a foster parent, I wish I would have known about the Ys, because ours is amazing. Anyways, that said, some of the ways that we've been addressing it. First of all, the behavioral health staff, both the crisis and the outpatient, we meet every other week. And once a month, we have a minority identified individual come in and just share their story and whatever they want to share and however they want to share it, to help us understand greater awareness of knowing how best to work with individuals like that. For instance, as a Native American, a lot of people didn't know, and I taught that in traditional, not for all, but for many, you don't give direct eye contact to your seniors or senior citizens or those who have power above you, which are therapists. It's not about being disrespectful. It's about truly honoring. And so it's been amazing. We've been doing this for the last year, and I love the enthusiasm that individuals bring, and we just give them the field to share what they want, but in it, how much I, like an old individual, learning so much from people just sharing their experiences and their struggles. The other thing is we have really prioritized our hiring over the last 2 years. And we have 67% a diverse identity in our behavioral health program, which collectively, you guys, we know, as you mentioned, it's 80-some% white, right? But we have worked so very hard, and the Y has given us the tools and the power to be able to do it, whether it's where we're advertising or paying to bring people in. And also we have a significant handful that's dual minority, which is a great honor as somebody who's also dual minority. Additionally, we recently received a grant from King County. We call it the Education Enhancement Program, because we know if you look at the schools are not turning out diversity, right? And so this is provide us seed money where we're going to start our own master's level program for individuals already working at the Y to elevate up, because the higher the education, the more privilege, and the more privilege, the less diversity. And this is a way to address it so individuals can get a higher education without the cumbersomeness of either getting the credit to get a loan or having that debt of a loan, because our profession does not justify the expense of the cost of a master's It does not. It's just not there. And then finally, the last thing is, most mental health agencies host interns, and we do as well. And we've elevated up, so we're the first in the county that we're paying now them, so they don't have to have multiple jobs and everything else. But the other is every school that we have an intern from, they have to give us a letter of what they've done to increase diversity in their own schools, because we got to start holding them accountable as well. So I'm really excited for those things, but also to work in an agency that supports it and believes in it, makes it easier. And not everyone has that luxury.
Thank you so much, Donnie. Mane, I really want to hear about the dope stuff you all are doing over at Utopia, to address these issues. I feel like y'all are probably doing amazing things.
Of course, thank you so much, Be Light. Well, when we think about Cutie BIPOC, right, and we think about our queer identities, so much of Western society likes to put us into boxes and separate those two identities, when in actuality, as a person who's indigenous to the Pacific, our existence have been in existence prior to pre-colonial times and also before the missionaries came. My identity as a Fa'afafine, or a person who is in the manner of a woman, has always existed. And a lot of the times when we're going to these spaces, we want to empower our students to understand that who they are as BIPOC community is not what Western society tells us we are, right? And so going into the school systems itself to disrupt a lot of the inequities that are there as well. And also making myself available for our Cutie BIPOC students who are, whether they're being addressed by an admin or a staff, or even our school counselors and psychiatrists, making sure that I am there present to be kind of that face-to-face person. Although I'm not licensed, I do have the same, I do have the lived experiences as a person of color and as a queer person in this community. And so just within this last few months, we've had bullying being brought up. There's a lot of stuff that are happening that used to happen back in the 50s and 60s, and they're happening nowadays. And so especially with bringing our kids back to school. And so a lot of our kids haven't had that social interaction with each other before. And so we're seeing a lot of ugliness happening, and a lot of our trans and queer students of color are being the target of a lot of this bullying and hate. So my job is to come and create spaces within their schools and to make sure that I'm holding also our schools accountable for the safety and well-being of our students, and providing support for their families. And so my approach is always looking at it in my indigenous lens as a Pacific Islander, as a Samoan, to always highlight the fact that our existence has always existed before anything that has been brought by the Western people. So yeah, I'm very excited to get to work with our kiddos and making sure that they get the services they need, but definitely holding the systems accountable. I'm a loudmouth in the school, so a lot of people see me walk in with my culture wear and they know it's Mane. So yeah, that's one thing I love doing, is making sure our admin team, school staff, and also our school psychiatrists and our counselors are treating our kids with the utmost respect. So
Thank you so much, Mane. Mark, can you speak to some things that have been working to address these inequities and this racism in the system?
Yes, I can. I think the origins of the Odessa Brown Children's Clinic in the 60s, late 60s, where the community decided that they wanted to have their own clinic. Once again, we're talking about community voice. That was a huge success. The idea of having multiple services under one roof, determined by the community, which is now known as a health home, that was a massive success because we're talking about access, and access is absolutely key. With that, I think that anything that we can do. I know Child Haven has been dedicated to do this for years and years. Anything that is related, once again, I'm beating the same drum of early interventions and prevention is it's humane. I mean, it's not just smart, it's humane. And to not do it, and it doesn't mean that the work being done with older kids and families with older kids and young adults isn't equally valuable, but we should really be focusing on what can we do to work with these families, when even prenatal, upstream, there's plenty of water, go upstream even further. Healthcare integration, there's no reason why we should delineate physical health and mental health. We should be doing much more work, and I think it's picking up momentum now in regards to how do we deal with those social emotional issues that families are coming to primary care with. With that, we have to figure out ways, and I think we've done some good work, but there's a lot of growth needed to how do we do town halls? How do we get parent youth advocacy groups? Whenever that's happened, we've learned a lot. It's easy to think that you're an expert. None of us, we all have wisdom, our own wisdom, but we all have so much to learn. So listen to those that once again have not been at the table at all. I think we oftentimes forget the power of imagery within physical clinics, schools, etc. If it doesn't look like something that you're familiar with, you don't feel comfortable there. So let's be more attuned to making sure that signage, art, music, etc., is reflective of the communities that we serve. The other thing, and lastly, is that, I think oftentimes in our very siloed world, that every expert group has their own language. Can we not figure out ways of speaking a more common language? Because all it does is it confuses people, frustrates people, and that's not what we want. So lots of good things, but access is key.
Thank you so much, Mark. Ryan, do you like to kind of close us out on this question and speak to things that are working?
Absolutely. I feel like I'm like Donnie, where I don't want to live on a computer, and the last 2 years have felt really, really restrictive for me. I had a lot of plans lined up to have a bunch of community programs like throughout like 2020, 2021 and beyond. And I feel limited in my capacity in solo private practice to be able to really make those things happen. So one thing that I personally do is anytime I have an opportunity to speak on behalf of the clients I serve, I throw my hat in the ring for pretty much every panel. Happy to do it. And two things that I specifically do within my private practice. I only wish I could have a bigger reach for this, but I have two groups that are intentional spaces for both people with marginalized identity separately from people of privilege. So my marginalized identities group is called Tuesday Night Tea. It is a very chill space where people can come in, bring a cup of tea, spill that tea, tell their stories, snap along with what they're hearing. It is a low cost, very sliding scale group. It's welcome to all sorts of people within the marginalized communities. And I really personally get a lot out of that group because I also am lacking from access to community at this time. And the other group that I hold is called Intersectional Allyship, and it's designed for people of privilege who work in places that interface with marginalized communities. And those of us who have had to interface with always well-intentioned people of privilege, we can incur a lot of psychological harm and damage because of their good intentions. So this is where I really try to bring some of my skills of having interfaced within communities of privilege a lot of my life and really speak the truth to them and let them know like the power that they have and the opportunities they have, not just for help, but for harm, and really give them my honest truth about what they need to work on, because I don't get to be in those white spaces. And it is majority white women that I work with in this capacity. And so if I can get them to listen to me and understand the importance of them leveraging their power effectively without causing harm to people, it's absolutely worth my time. And I use that group to subsidize the other one.
Thank you so much, Ryan. Just because of time, if we could, for this next question, I mean, if everybody wants to answer it, obviously we can all answer, but I feel like if we could identify two people who really want to answer this next question, and it is, what are things that youth are doing to design their spaces of their own that integrate their culture, their experiences, their ancestral knowledge to address the youth mental health crisis in their communities? Can anyone on the panel speak to that, like what they see the youth actively doing, to be involved? If anybody wants to just unmute their mic and start talking, that's fine.
I can speak just a little bit. Some things I'm seeing in one of our schools, specifically in High School, a lot of our BIPOC community they have a special space called the Culture Room, and it's run by their culture program manager, Sulan Holkano, who is Native Hawaiian. But in that space, all kids from different backgrounds, even our queer community, they're able to go in and celebrate who they are as a person and celebrate all aspects of who they are. And in that room is a piece of art that reflects every person in that room. And so it's very unique in space because those art pieces are made by the kiddos themselves. And these are high school kids. So a lot of them, when talking with the students, a lot of them say that this is probably the only space they feel celebrated in their community, not just the school, but their community. And a lot of them come to just digress from the stressors that are outside the doors in the halls of the school. And so this beautiful space speaks volumes to the work that Sister Sulan is doing with Sister Leslie at Enhancement. And every month they highlight just what they're celebrating that month. So next month would be API Heritage, and a lot of the kiddos are coming together and they're creating this massive wall art alongside the cultural room that celebrates who they are as BIPOC community. And so they've done Black History Month, they've done Asian Pacific Islander Month, and then also Indigenous Peoples Month. And so a lot of this work is highlighted and ran by the students themselves, and they get to speak up and what they want. And I'm so proud of them because it also has empowered them to speak up to their school board, speak up to staff during professional development. And a lot of them are getting their voices heard. And if you know the population of Enhancement, it's not too heavy on cutie BIPOC or BIPOC community in general. So for the small amount of these students to go out into the bigger community and to really raise their voices for the inequities that are happening within the building and holding their school district and their admin accountable is amazing. So I just commend a lot of that work because Sulan and her team are amazing at just making sure that the kids' voices are at the forefront of the fight, and they're the ones leading the fight and not adults like us, right? So I'm just very, very proud of that work. And I want to share that.
Thank you so much, Monet. For the sake of time, we're going to go ahead and do our last question. And so if each of you could share one immediate next step that attendees can take to activate their advocacy around the youth mental health crisis, just one thing that they can take away from today where they can go out into this world, into their environments and really advocate, for QT, BIPOC youth and their mental health in this crisis. So Donnie, could we start with you?
Sure. And when you say one thing, but I'll just do one really long run-on sentence. But this might be my last time to be able to talk. Belite, I see Jennifer did a shout out to you in the chat, and I agree. You're just really a natural at this. You have a calmness and a deeper relation ability, and I really appreciate it. So for me, I would just tell people, listen, listen, listen. People just want to fix things, right? So if the system has challenges, but if you're working with somebody, you're advocating for somebody, listen to them. If they're struggling, anybody can support anybody if we take the time to listen. And remember, your experience is yours. People's experiences their own, their feelings are their own. You don't argue with them. It's amazing how we want to argue, debate people's feelings and experiences. And finally, you might be a professional, but you aren't an expert in anyone else's life or culture. And I think that's really important that we remember that.
Yes. Ryan.
Great. So mine's piggybacking off of Johnny a little bit. Something I've been wanting to speak into this room is that I believe that adults and parents need re-education. There is an unmitigated parallel epidemic of fear that I think is creating so many barriers between breaking these systems of inequity down. And so if there's anything I want to impart to anybody in the audience is that even though we're grown and we think we know a lot or whatever, we also have a lot of work to do to make sure that we are taking care of our own social emotional health and getting access to the care that we need and the education to not cause harm, and to also just like prevent there from being all these roadblocks towards access to care.
Thank you. Mark.
I'm going to take a lesson from Donnie and do a run-on sentence with my one long. Absolutely listen. Totally agree. But not only listen, but think about, once again, who isn't at the table, who haven't you invited to hear, and what does that mean? I think this is part of the run-on is, can you build that muscle to be comfortable with the discomfort? You got to get to the discomfort. You got to get there, and you got to sit there, and you're not going to want to. You're going to want to escape that. Sit with the discomfort, and then from there, come up with action steps.
Absolutely. Mane.
I think the only thing I have to add on is just being open to learn. Learning is always a great way, and never shutting yourself out to just thinking that you know it all and just stop learning, right? So always be an active learner, always be an active listener, and just, just keep pushing it forward.
Absolutely. And what I'd like to add to that is, be an active learner, right? Don't wait for somebody to come teach you. Go out and find it. Like Donnie was saying, like, there's so many amazing resources, and like literally we just don't know. And it really is just as easy as going on to Google, but also going up to your community centers and going to talk to people and reaching out, because there's so many amazing programs. And so saying that, oh, well, I just didn't know about it, that's not a good enough excuse. Be an active learner, take responsibility, take initiative, take action. So thank you to my panel. You all are absolutely amazing. Infinite gratitude. Ashe, ashe. So now we're going to get into some Q&A from the audience. Please, y'all, send us your burning questions. We want to know, and we will do our best to answer them. And so as we wait to get the questions in. What I will ask is, are there any specific things that, or methods or techniques that the audience can do to start to learn, right? Is there like a YouTube channel they should check out? Is there an organization they should reach out? Donnie?
Oh, me? Oh boy. I gotta be honest, when you're saying that, I was thinking about, we have a great group of peer counselors, right? And one day we were talking about the YMCA, the acronym, right? It feels like it doesn't fit with our times. And Sarah Freeman, one of the peer counselors, said, I think we should be known as YMCA Youth and Marginalized Community Advocacy. So I just wanted to plug that because I thought this is so fitting for our conversation right now, right? But I get a punt to others. I feel like I've done so much talking.
Okay. What about you, Ryan?
One organization in particular I want to spotlight is Why We, Young Women Empowered. I did a youth-led panel with them in December. It was one of my first in-person things, so beautiful. And they are always looking for youth mentors. That is a way that, people can just bring in their lived experience and connect to young youth. And that's another thing that I think is always missing is adult mentors who are outside of the role of parent and educator. So that I think is a great opportunity for adults to get involved.
What was the name of the organization again?
It's Why We, Y-We.
Y-We.
Yeah, Young Women Empowered.
If you could type that in the chat, that'd be
You got it.
Love it. Thank you so much, Ryan. Mark, are there any organizations you'd like to shout out?
The Tubman Center is a new health home center that is in Rainier Valley, and they are doing wonderful work, and they will continue to do incredible work. And you can find them on the web easily. I think Child Haven is doing amazing work also, but you can always get a hold of me anytime you want to. I'm more than happy to talk to anyone about the work we're doing at Child Haven. And I think real fast, doing the work with families and communities is key, but we have to figure out how to partner better as a sector, and definitely have to change policy. If we don't change policy, we're going to be spinning our wheels for years.
Thank you so much, Mark. So we have a question, and it is, what would you say is the single most important piece of advice you would give to your white counterparts who are working in support of BIPOC and LGBTQ plus to do no harm?
It's hard to make it one area of focus. I can think of like 27. I'll say a few. One is understanding the difference between intent and impact. That I could do a whole TED talk on. Another one that I'm thinking of is being mindful of the why that you bring into the work. Who are you serving and why? Who are you in this work? What are you really trying to accomplish? Is this for you? Partially it should be, but I really encourage people to really thoroughly be introspective about why they're working with these communities and what they actually have to offer. And then, as always, forever, be an active learner any opportunity you have.
Thank you, Ryan.
I would just, everything you just said, Ryan, perfect. Absolutely. And honestly, I think of the gay community in Seattle, so much has been able to be moved forward because of allies, intelligent, kind, respectful allies. And so you might not be gay, you might not be Native. It doesn't mean you can't help me, but you should make sure you're utilizing consultations and supervisions as well to also be aware of your own biases. And to me, it's a lifelong learning process. I mean, I think so many in our profession I don't know, they go to a 2-hour class and they think they're an expert on that, and there's nothing more done with it. But, working with humans, we always need to learn more and more. A perfect example, we call this Q trans BIPOC, right? Queer trans, using the word queer to people older than me is a trauma. It could create a trauma response. So words, even words change over time, right? From one year to the next. And I love how younger people took that word and empowered it. It doesn't mean it's for all people. So being aware of that and being genuine. Genuine is so critical. And it's not acting genuine, it's being genuine.
Absolutely. Exactly. Your true colors will always show. So knowing your intentions is very important and coming off genuine. I agree. Mane, do you have any suggestions to add?
Yeah. Learning to listen before speaking is a big piece, but also letting our BIPOC and LGBTQ youth lead the work is a big thing. We tend, as adults, we tend to step in, and especially our white counterparts to step in as a white savior, and we don't want to highlight that. We want to make sure we're highlighting the needs of our BIPOC community and our LGBTQ community. So understanding the difference between stepping in and then also letting the kids lead the work. So.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mane. Mark, did you have anything you wanted to add?
You know I do. You know I do. Yeah, I think that, the idea of sometimes the most progressive white folks can be the most dangerous. Think about what that means. I don't think I want to go into that, but it's an interesting concept, and it's one I think that resonates in Seattle. And I'm not saying that to offend anyone, because, and also think about, just ask yourself the question, are you getting in the way? Kind of like what Mane was just saying, right? Are you getting in the way of progress? Because sometimes the best intent is just supporting the status quo when you don't even know it. You just don't know it. And so being alert and listening. So you got a heck of a panel, Be Light.
Thank you, Mark. Question in the chat, do any of you know any resources on the east side? And I'm assuming they're saying east side of Washington, so Eastern Washington, Spokane area, of any organizations. If you do, you can just type it in the chat. Just go ahead. If anybody has any recommendations for Eastern Washington, just go ahead and type in the chat. But, as we conclude this panel, I just want to ask each of you, just whatever the last thing you want to leave us with that you feel is important, because to share with this audience. So Donnie, thank you. And we'll start with you. What do you want to leave us with?
Well, I think anybody that showed up today, thank you, right? And we need to remember to forgive ourselves. Sometimes when we try and expand our knowledge or want to move forward, we sometimes maybe mess up some. And that's okay, right? Being authentic, owning it, but coming and also at the same time for me to have grace for others, right? Maybe you don't use the right pronoun when you're addressing me. That's, I want to be able to give that grace as well, but for you also to have the grace to hear. And so for me, I think that's the most important thing is thank you for everyone that's here today. You're already on your own road, and that's fabulous.
Thank you so much, Donnie.
As well as I want to sorry to interrupt, just what an honor to be, seriously, you guys, we none of us really got to meet each other until, I don't know, an hour ago, right? And it's an honor to be with you, all of you guys. Thank you.
Ashe, it definitely is a beautiful thing, community, bringing all this energy together to promote just such an amazing, event and talking about things so important. So thank y'all. Ryan?
Double everything that Donnie just said, for sure. Maybe again, being here is a huge step. Please don't let this be your only step. Please don't be afraid to volunteer, put yourself in uncomfortable spaces. I invite you to brace being uncomfortable and practice holding that. That's one of the best gifts you can give yourself.
Yes, get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because that is what promotes growth. Growth is not comfortable. Love it. Mark?
And I think at the most simplest level for me, we are all much more similar than we are different. We all need the same things. We need to be loved, cared for, valued, validated, etc. And how can we get to that point? And I think that even the mere fact of having like marginalized communities over years and years and years, that marginalization is internal for all of us, and so we need to heal that within ourselves, and from there we'll see massive, and we are seeing incredible changes in a positive way. And I'll tell you what, thank you, panel, because I could listen to you every day, all day.
Absolutely. And you hit it right on the head, Mark. I believe love is the key to unlock peace. This is love. Like, we all do this work because of love. That is the underlying thing. And we all need and operate from love, and we're interdependent. We need each other. We would not and have been able to progress as a society without each other or even survive. So it's all love. That's what I say. It's all love. Mane, what would you like to leave us with?
First, I'd just like to thank everyone here for sharing their mana, their spirit, their energy. It's not easy to give forth spirit and energy, but to be in this space with you all, and to everyone who's watching, it just humbles me. And one thing I want to leave everyone with is just love yourself as much as you can, and to always take care of yourself before taking care of others, because there's only one you, and you cannot do this work to impact lives if you are not taken care of. So always take care of yourself before taking care of others. Love y'all.
Mane. So I'm gonna have to be honest with you guys. These past couple weeks has been really hard for me. And I just did a big show, and I've just been kind of saying yes to everything, right? And I literally say, prioritize my mental health, work hard, then rest. And I am exhausted. I don't know how tired you guys can tell I am, but I running off no sleep. I'm literally going to Seattle immediately after this. Then tomorrow in the morning, I am going to Spokane. And I'm not prioritizing my mental health. And I honestly, I feel shame, but also I have to give myself grace and understand that I can reflect and be like, hey, this isn't working. Let's reevaluate. So I'm definitely going on a little sabbatical. I'm going on a vacation in the DR on the 31st. And so in my mind, I'm like, let's make it to the 31st, but also no, let's not wait till the weekend. Let's not wait till vacation to prioritize our mental health. It is a daily practice and a daily ritual. And so let's not bite more than we can chew. Yes, we're passionate about this work, but if we're not good, we can't be good for anybody else. And it's not our job to save the world. It is not our job to save the world. And so I know all of you guys do this work and you're so passionate. I know you give your all, but remember you deserve to give your all to yourself and to your families. And so that's what I would like to leave everybody with, is prioritize you, and then everything else will follow. Because when you love yourself, that love will spread to everybody else straight up. I promise, I've been doing that too. And it's just everybody's be light, you're such a light, but it's because I'm a light to myself. So thank y'all, infinite gratitude. I would just like to transition and ask that you guys participate in our word cloud. We really would love your feedback, because we're doing this for you. So we want to know, how you were impacted today. So please text YMCA S312 to 223, and please share one word that you would use to express a feeling or emotion that you experienced during the presentation tonight. My word is excited. I'm so excited. That is definitely my word. So please text your word. Also, my other word is lit. I always say that word. Lit. It was lit. But yeah, thank y'all. Please text that word. Love and light to all you all. Be magnificent. Keep loving yourself. Prioritize your mental health. Don't be afraid to ask for help. You got this. We got this. Peace.
Let's go.
We got love, enlightening, growth, amazing, warmth, energized, community, powerful, hopeful, uplifted. This, love it. Love and light to y'all.
All right. Boy, how powerful was that? And I'm just watching the cloud continue to populate. I want us to put it back up because the words are so powerful. And as we see this populate, I just want to give you back some of what I've heard over the last few minutes. Prioritize our mental health. Learn to listen before speaking, knowing the difference between impact and intent. Listen to listen, not necessarily to try to fix it. Give and receive grace. Love yourself before taking care of others. Embrace being uncomfortable. That promotes growth. And my three favorites. Community is a beautiful thing. Love is the key to unlock peace. It's all love. I could listen to this panel all day. I'm just coming up to just say thank you to our amazing panelists for all the lively and thought-provoking discussion, their spirit, their energy, just wow. Thank you, panelists, for your wisdom, the wisdom that you imparted with us this evening. And many thanks to all of you in our audience who have chosen to join us and invest your time in learning, engaging, and mobilizing with the Y to serve youth in our communities. I'm Loria Yaden, and I'm the president and CEO of the YMCA of Greater Seattle. My pronouns are she, her, hers, Loria. And on behalf of our staff, our volunteers, our partners, and our community, we thank each of you for joining us and invite you to engage with us on learning more, getting more involved, and helping meet our community commitment to lift up youth voices and be champions for progress. Become a steward and advocate for youth. Walk with the Y. Together, let's invest resources towards the collective impact work of whole person health for youth and advancing equity and justice for all. Together, let's show up as a collective committed to addressing the youth mental health crisis. We hope you've been inspired by the voices of youth, parents, experts at the Y, who are individuals and as a whole give us so much of themselves every day. They focus so tirelessly on serving community and removing obstacles for the next generation. Simply said, they are the ones who inspire others to walk with us in this journey. With a focus on enabling youth to fulfill their fullest potential in spirit, mind, and body, the Y's approach to youth mental health produces more equitable outcomes for all, especially Black, Indigenous, and people of color, as well as other marginalized youth and families, to develop their full potential and thrive. It's uber important, everyone, that we pay attention to our young people, invest in them with conviction and urgency, especially those furthest from opportunity. Just simply said, they are our future. The Y is committed to empowering youth and removing barriers to their success while building stronger, healthier, and more resilient communities for generations to come. So please walk with us. Join us in this critical work. Please help us support youth and foster stronger communities for all. In the coming years, as we strive to address the devastating and lasting impacts of the triple pandemics in a bigger way, we expect to see increased need from youth and families across our communities. To meet these needs, we need your help. This critical work cannot happen without you. Solving this crisis takes all of us. So what's our call to action for you? Please engage. Engage by volunteering, giving, raising awareness, committing to your own personal journey of learning, and more. In the chat box, you'll see a link to our website where you can learn more about this important work and make a donation right now. We have curated a collection of resources to support your continued learning on this topic and specific opportunities for you to engage on this issue in partnership with the Y and other community organizations. Please visit our Mission Forum Community Hub on our website to learn even more. Again, we thank you for joining us. We look forward to working with you on this critical work for our youth. Together, we can do this. So join us. Enjoy your evening. Thanks, everyone.